Hello my friends and welcome to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master SP Deck Challenge Deck Overviews Part 2, where I go through the next two sets of decks inside this duel here. Again, I'm making it its own series. I meant to say series in the last episode, but I accidentally said season. I meant to say series. So my bad for those of you who caught that. But anyway, I'm making it its own series as a reminder. See, I said it again. My bad. Because those of you who are either interested in the opponent's deck while I'm still going through the my deck duels to see what I'm up against, because it's still relevant there, or if you want to see how the deck looks in its original form versus how I made it. That will be cool too, because sometimes it's only small changes, sometimes it's fairly big changes. It all depends on what the SRs and URs were doing for the deck, and if I had to take out other cards as a result. But I think this deck had quite a few rares. So a lot of the good stuff, like these magnet warriors, I was able to keep in. So basically, it's really like most of the time it's going to be only the cards that say SRU I'm taking out, unless I have it. Like I had the Harpies, I had the Raigeki. I think you get those for free, along with the Monster Reborn, one way or another. So I already had those. I had the Proverbs Extravagance already, so like any of the SRs or URs I had, I'm gonna also put in, along with like any rares I'll be willing to craft. But yeah, a card like this one, which is basically one of the big payoffs for the for having the electromagnet warriors, but I think this is probably the bigger payoff, which is cool that this is an SR as opposed to a UR, but still it's an SR, so I'm not even gonna touch that even. So polymerization was still useful because I made it work for I believe I made it work for the normals, utilizing, instead of King of the Swamp, I had to use Hex Sealed Fusion, which is usually what I like to do. And if they happen to be other attributes, I can always like use other Hex Sealed Fusions, not the dark one, because there's one, I believe, for every attribute, and they're all rares. Anyway, I think I wanted to get that out of the way first, explain my changes a little bit. I think I explained them, but like there's like a refresher. Okay, so now I'll go over. It's called Shooting Megalith, which is kind of weird because there's no Megalith cards in here. See, this is what I was talking about when I went over the spin. There's no Megalith cards in here. See, it's not just because I took them out. There literally is no Megalith. So it is really weird, in my opinion, that this is called Megalith. It would make you kind of think that this is supposed to be a Megalith deck. Like, why would they include an archetype name in the deck? Unless they were supposed to, like, going for, like, a joke or something. But, like, I don't think it can be just me. Like, I mean, you don't see the tile until you go into the deck, so you see it right away. But I wonder how many other people were expecting a Megalith deck with the name. And were kind of weirded out when they saw it wasn't a Megalith deck. I bet if you, like, told anyone just the deck name, they would probably expect a Megalith deck. I mean, they're still rocks, so I guess that works, and Megalith also rocks, which is what I was saying, like, similarity, but still, it's weird. And I don't think it can be just me. Anyway, the deck description reads, a rock-type deck centered around the Magnet Warrior monsters. Your ace monsters for this deck are Valkyrian the Magnet Warrior, and Berserkion the Electromagnet Warrior. When dueling, make sure you know the monsters required for their special summons as well. Yeah, I think Megalith refers to like rock creatures as well. So like, yeah, okay, sure, that's fine. But I don't know. It just seems weird. Like, if you already have an archetype, I don't know if it's best to name it that. But whatever. They decide to name it that, so that's fine. Anyway, so here are the first few cards. I don't think I really need to go through the normals all too much. They don't really have effects. They just are used to bring out the Valkyrion, the magnet warriors at least. These no magnet warriors, because this one requires you to use the original magnet warriors. The electromagnet warriors don't do. Although even without Berserkian, it's still worth playing the electromagnet warriors because these guys help you to bring out the either search or maybe special summon like your original magnet warriors as well. And this one even allows you to search either one of the magnet warriors, so you can just search a Valkyrion too. So these are still going to be loads of help. But yeah, it's definitely a lot better when you can actually use a Berserkian. Still it's fine when you can't. And then this one, I don't think either one calls for. Yeah, neither one of the level 8s call for Delta, but Delta is still really good. I believe there's a normal version of this too, but it's like not even worth playing the normal version of this. Well, maybe not, because this is just Magnet Warrior, so this isn't part of the Electromagnet. So I guess they did have. So this is probably part of the original ensemble. It just happens to be a effect monster. Yeah, see, because it kind of also got that little bit of effect that allows you to special summon Valkyrion from your hand or deck, ignoring. So this is another way of bringing it out. Like, so you can either bring it out via its own effect or via this guy. So that's kind of nice too. Although even if you're not using it to bring out the Valkyrion, it's still got a nifty effect to allow you to mill one of your level 4 or lower Magnet Warrior. And since it says Magnet Warrior monsters, that means you can send the Electromagnet Warrior monsters as well. Since they are still Magnet Warrior monsters. Yeah. Yeah, see, just like right here, how like this says Magnet Warrior monster. I wonder if they did that, like, with hindsight, that they might eventually create, like, other support for Magnet Warriors that would also have, like, be a part of them, that would also be able to be, like, sent off of him. I don't know. And then Raigeki, Hoppies, as always, are just good generic cards. Monster Reborn, once again, also good because this deck also has a lot of monsters that can like activate their effects again when you bring them out. As usual, that like goes like for a lot. That's why it's really nice, because like especially when you bring out an effect monster with this card, you get to reuse the effect, which can be pretty big. So this like so this like basically like trading out one card for another, it can turn into so much more if you bring out an effect monster. Or you could just bring out one of your big either the Valkyrian or Berserkian, as long as you special summon them from your hand first. Or you could bring out your X-Deck monsters too. There's a lot of options. Although Exceeds are generally not really that great of an idea to bring out. Because then they won't really, because they're kind of like normal. It's kind of like bringing out a normal monster, which isn't all that great. Because like they generally need their Exceed materials to be able to use the effects again. So it's probably better just bring out like a fusion instead, or a sync or a link if this deck would have those. Although some exceeds do have useful abilities that don't require exceed material. Like this one, I suppose, is kind of a useful ability. Being unaffected by the monster's effects can be pretty useful. And I don't think I really use his effect. I don't know. Just being a 2000 beat stick can be nice, but like there's so many more options. Power of Extravagance, once again, there's a lot of duplicates here. Not as many duplicates as the other deck, but still enough duplicates to make it worth it. Generally, if you're playing Power of Extravagance, you're probably going to want to have duplicates. Either want to have duplicates, or just don't care about the extra deck if you don't have duplicates. Well, like, you still might as well have duplicates even if you don't care about the X deck. Unless you really don't care about the X deck. But I still think, like, if you don't care about the X deck, it's probably fine to just, like, have duplicates. Unless you're trying to maybe, like, work the deck maybe around Super Poly. But even then, it might be worth having duplicates. Like, maybe, like, of the better Super Poly targets. Unless, like maybe you need to only play one of a certain monster. But generally, like, if there's if you're only playing one of a certain monster, like, it's probably, you should make sure that's not one that you would care about being banished, like for like the frogs with the Totally Awesome, even though I was like playing it with the Totally Awesome when that was still legal. But that's only because I was like having more fun with it. Like, if I was to play Power of Extravagance for real, I would make sure I probably wouldn't want to have duplicates in that deck, or just play a different pod instead. It's kind of the same way with Power of Desires, where you pretty much want to have duplicates if you're playing Power of Desires, or just like for the like one-ofs that you have, the like ones that maybe don't matter as much. I think Power of Desires may be a little bit safer just because the deck size of a main deck is bigger. Even though you do banish 10, so you are also banishing a lot more with Power of Desires. I don't know. Magnet Induction. This is one of the cards I couldn't play because it was SR. Pretty good though. It lets you basically special summon a different named Magnet Warrior. You could use the normal monster to special summon. Oh, actually, since Alpha the Electromagnet Warrior technically has a different name than Alpha the Magnet Warrior, you could still use it while you have like an Alpha the Magnet Warrior to bring out the Electromagnet Warrior, or vice versa. You could still do that, which is pretty cool. So there's definitely a lot more options nowadays with this card, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if this came out. I think this is probably one of the newer cards, but yeah, there's definitely a lot more options when you include both of them. So, I mean, the normal monsters are also still kind of useful for getting you to the Electromagnet Warriors. Like, by giving you more options, like, by making sure this is live a lot more often. And I think in, like, more competitive builds, I think people do use these normal guys also. Just because then Valkyrian is like a side option, in case you want to bring out that. Though, if they play them all at 2 or less, I'm not sure on the ratios exactly, you probably would want to play all of the Electromagnet Warrior monsters. Maybe at 3. Actually, 2 of each might be okay. Maybe 2 of the Alpha, 3 of the Beta, because like this is a searcher you generally want to have at 3, and then probably 2 of this is fine. So I'd probably just add in an extra copy of the Beta. Maybe you can But I think having both of these are fine, since you can also guess it's a little bit hard to get them out from the graveyard, but you can still like re-add them to your hand, I think. Too bad Delta is only from the hand to deck as well. I don't know. I don't know if it's that important, like, that you, like, have multiple copies of either of these. I don't know. And then Magnetic Field is the field spell. This isn't, like, a field... Well, no, actually, it's kind of a Magnet Warrior. Yeah, like, you basically need... Yeah, you play this in Magnet Warrior. Although, at least the once per turn effect at the end there is generic, so... Maybe you could play it in non-Magnet Warrior decks. But I think it's probably better with Magnet Warriors. Because does the last effect really matter? I don't think so. It's probably really only worth playing Magnet Warriors because you're mostly looking for the first effect, and then the second effect is a bonus. Although it is nice that the second effect is for any Earthrock monster, so it doesn't have to be a Magnet Warrior baneling. Burning Land. Kind of like in the last deck, there was also Burning Land. And it's kind of the same thing here. You probably don't want to activate it when you have a field spell out. This is more for just getting rid of your opponent's field spell. And the little bit of burn, I guess, is kind of like a bonus, which maybe can help you get game a little bit faster. But it's mostly just for, like, destroying the field spell. So, like, this is probably, like, like, really only play it if it's going to be worth it to you, I would say. Like, probably just wait until your opponent puts up a field spell. Like, and once again, my opponent is playing a pretty annoying field spell. I think this is the one where they're playing tunes. So, yeah, definitely wait until a field spell goes up before playing this. I think I was, like... not doing that, and probably should have maybe been. Although you do have other ways of getting rid of back row as well. So even if you do accidentally like put it out a little too early, you still have Attack the Moon to fall back on. Which is pretty much why Giant Soldier of Stone is being played. In addition to like Mystical Sand calling for it. Because Konami really wanted to like bring the anime into this. And if you can see, like, he's pretty much on the artwork. So they felt like they had to, like have the reference in here. But, like, really it's any rock. So it does need to be Giant Soldier of Stone changing its battle position. Although Giant Soldier of Stone is probably going to be a nice one to do it on. Like, if you're just, like, if you're going first and you have both this and Giant Soldier of Stone. Just to, like... Because, like, this is the one that you can best ensure. I guess there's also this that, like, also has 2000 defense. And then if your opponent attacks into it and it's not destroyed, then you can change its battle position and then get the destruction. Which is pretty cool. And then Mirror Force for destroying monsters. Magnet Force. This is a pretty nice one. Basically just making all of your monsters unaffected by opponent's monster effects. This is kind of like Miscellaneous Source, but for rocks and machine monsters. Although it really does stink that, like, I mean, Miscellaneous Source, I mean, probably not stink because, like, Miscellaneous Source is, like, really broken because of the fact that it's a monster. And that, like, you can, like, easily use it during the player's turn even when you're going first. Whereas with this one, you have to set it first. And, like, it's a little bit easier to destroy it because, like, it's on the field. Your opponent can always destroy it before you want to activate it. So you might have to activate it preemptively. Whereas maybe you want to activate it during your turn to make sure that, like, your monsters don't get hand trapped or something. So yeah. But still, not a bad card. And the fact that it can be trap tricked is kind of nice. Trap tricked. I guess you can like get out with that new thrust card too if you're willing to afford it. Although if you can afford that, like would you really want to play a less competitive deck like Mining Warriors? I mean, I guess if you're like if like this is like just a side deck that you already had, like, and you already won the thrust, but like I would say like don't get it just to use it in battery in like Magnet Warriors. Like you basically need to have a competitive deck if you're going to be buying expensive cards like that. I think, although I do know there are a lot of casual players that do buy expensive cards just for the heck of it. But I think if you're like low on cash, like it's definitely better to not pick up the expensive cards just to play in casual. Although I guess I do that sometimes, but I'm trying not to. I don't know. I know it can be fun. I guess it's ultimately up to you. Anyway, I'll go to the next one here. Magnet conversion basically allows you to curve magnet warrior monsters. So you really want to wait until you have at least 3 so you can get the most amount of value out of it. And then this one also lets you special summon a magnet warrior. So it's a nice card. Yeah, it allows you to special summon a magnet warrior from your banish zone. Although I was finding that like it wasn't really too easy to like banish my stuff without the Berserkian, because he's the one that banishes, this one just tributes. And so like I found that like since I wasn't playing the Berserkian, since it was too high, the graveyard effect was kind of useless. Although it is still really nice for the first effect, so like I ended up still using it for that. Anyway, cause that's probably one of the reasons you want to play both, too, because Berserkian helps you to easily get banish for this effect. Although I'm not sure if you actually like would want to use like mining conversion. You might, since it does help you curve resources. I think I agree on playing one, though. Curse of Dragon. Honestly, I think Konami does a pretty good job on kind of ratios. Some of these could go up, but I think a lot of these like kind of give you a good sense on like the ratios. Like maybe polymerization could be played at 3 just so you can see it more often. I don't know. I'm part of Extravagance. A lot of people do like playing 2, so that's fine. You probably wouldn't even play Attack the Moon, just play like other back row destruction if you really wanted to, like Hoppy's Feather Dust, since it destroys everything. And then you could just take out the Burning Land for other things. You like with all the cards you're taking out, you can probably afford to put in another magnetic field, which might be worth it. Doing 3 magnetic fields. I think this is probably worth playing 3 of 2, maybe. But I think for the most part, like, it seems pretty good. Like, maybe, like, upping this at least to 2 or 3, especially if you want to play Trap Trick with it. It's not a bad card, especially if you, like, your opponent doesn't destroy it. And then, like, you can activate it on your terms. Curse of Dragon, the Magical Knight. And then here's the extra deck. So this one is used because, where's your warrior? There's your warrior, the Gaia, the Fierce Knight. So you're playing 1 warrior, so like this one's not gonna be super easy to bring out. And I don't, and like, yeah, like basically once it's out, it just basically makes it a little bit easier to fusion summon your other to fusion summon level 7 dragon fusions like Gaia and any of these, which are gonna be a little bit hard to summon because you're not playing as many Gaia the Fierce Knights monsters. Although it does still allow you to play just one and not have to like put it back in your hand. You can still use polymerization and then just, or something. Yeah, you can still use polymerization and just banish the materials the second time, which is pretty much what you're going to be doing, since you really only have, since you're going to be using up that warrior, plus I think this is the only dragon, so you're going to be using up these, so they're going to be in the graveyard, so you're going to have to be like use them from the graveyard in order to bring out the others if you're planning to bring out more of your Gaia monsters. And then of course when they're actually on the field, they're definitely not as useful because you're not playing any of the spells. Like this one, you're not even playing the Spiral Spear Strike in this deck. They just pretty much wanted to play them. This one's still useful, like it still allows you to destroy stuff. And this one's still somewhat useful, allowing you to change battle position. But definitely a lot more useful in the last deck, where you actually were playing a dedicated Gaia and Curse of Dragon deck. Imperial Magnum is probably the one you're going to be wanting to go for more this time. Just because, like, you're playing a dedicated Mining Warrior deck. But, like, these are just, like, options you can go into, like, if you don't have the setup for Imperial Magnum. And you just really need to go into a fusion because your opponent, like, has, like, a really strong board. And you want to go into something to try to contest that. But, yeah, this one is useful. It has negation effects. It's actually pretty useful. And it even has the power to be able to special summon both of your Valkyrie and Berserkion. Which is pretty cool. But it has to like leave the field because of an opponent's card effect. Which may not always happen, but I think like happens quite a bit, so that's fine. Because you can even be banished by the opponent's card effect, so be able to use that effect. So that's cool, get can special summon both, which is like one reason why you do want to play both, I would say. If you're playing the fusion, which I think the fusion is actually worth playing. Although I'm not sure if you really need 3, like maybe if you're playing the Extravagance build, which you could probably honestly do, and then maybe you'd want to play 3. Just because this is probably one you want to definitely go into. So maybe if you can, try to hold off until you can actually bring this guy out, which actually shouldn't be that difficult. Although it does, oh man, the fact that it calls for both of those, that actually kind of stinks. Because then they're going to the graveyard and now you can't like special summon them because it doesn't count your graveyard. So you might actually want to play these both at 2. I'm not sure. Like, because like if you use them as material, they'll be in the graveyard or something. And then you won't be able to like special summon them from there. Huh. And then Giant Soldier of Steel. I kind of talked about this. The fact that it gains 1,000 defense can kind of also help if like your opponent is able to like beat over it. Then like you can also make it a little bit hard to do that as well. And also like it can be good if you like really need something to protect you from effect damage. Like if your opponent is trying to OTK you that way. Although there's cards that do that better, because generally when an opponent is trying to OTK you with effect damage, they're going to try to do it on the first turn. Like, and then at that point you can't even have Steel out. But, yeah. Anyway, so there's that deck, and then here's the opponent's deck. So this deck is called O. So it's not a tune deck, but it does have some field spells. So Burning Land is still useful because the field spell is kind of, yeah, the field spell is can be really good for helping to bring out their monsters, like the level 5 monsters, because it lowers everything by 1. It helps bring out the level 7 monsters with only needing 1 tribute instead of 2. And it also helps to proc some of the effects of these monsters since it's counted as Umi. Anyway, the deck description reads, this is a water deck that uses the legendary Fisherman, which becomes more powerful when there's an ocean on the field. Uses the effects of Levia, Dragon, Daedalus, and Rage of Kairu Shin to destroy any troublesome cards on your opponent's field. So, first of all, Amphibious Bugwrath MK3, not really that necessary. Just the fact to attack your opponent's life points directly, like if you're like playing this, like you're most of the time you don't really care too much about getting in for your opponent's life points. Like you generally just want to set up like really big boards that's like hard for your opponent to take down, because like then that way like you can basically beat down your opponent like that way, unless you're going for OTK, and then attack does kind of matter. Yeah, attack does matter, but this isn't really an OTK deck. This is more of a control deck, and in that sense, like Amphibious Bugwrath, probably not that important. Like if this was an OTK deck, cards like the Amphibious Bugwrath or the Mermaid Knight would be a lot more useful. But like these spots could better be served for like more controlled, for like more controlled cards. Maybe an extra copy of Sea Stealth Attack. I'm not sure if that's good, but maybe an extra copy of Fury, an extra copy of Salvage, maybe. I don't know. Maybe even an extra copy. I don't know how. Like, this is probably fine, but yeah, like maybe 3 Furies could be good. Because you don't always like need to think like, oh, if I play 3 Furies, like then the last Fury will be dead. Like you may not even see that last Fury. It's more for the fact that you're more likely to draw that Fury, and so that you can get yourself into Torrential right away. So that may be like another mistake that players make. Like they think like just because they're playing a card that searches for another specific card, which doesn't really happen a lot, but in the case of Fury, like the card searching for is actually pretty good. Like just because you're playing 3 Furies and doesn't mean you need to play like 3 Torrentials in that case. Like you're more just playing the 3 just to make sure that you can see the first Fury as soon as possible. If that makes sense. And then Warrior of Atlantis. Yeah, see, like with this, like if it's like this, if you were to play 3 Warriors of Atlantis, that doesn't mean you have to play 3 Legendary Oceans. See, this is a good example right here, because there's a ton of monsters that like search for specific field spells, or like maybe like if you're playing like both Terraforming and Metaverse and maybe like a few other field spells, like a lot of like a lot of decks that have like important field spells might opt to play like multiple different field spell searchers not because they have a ton of field spells, but just so that they can see the first one as soon as possible, because that field spell is just so important to put up. So yeah. So yeah, don't get, I would say, like, just don't get caught in the net where, like, you think just because you're playing a certain amount of the monsters or the spell that searches for a specific card means you also have to play that many of that card. Like, just because you're playing 9 field spell searches doesn't necessarily make it bad if you're only playing 3 field spells. It's just that, like, you're, like, likely to see one in your opening hand, when, like, it may be the most important that you see the field spell. So yeah, anyway, sure, it means maybe some of the extra copies are dead, but, like, with, like, how quick games usually go nowadays, you probably have either lost or beaten your opponent by the time it would take where, like, maybe your other copies show up. Maybe back in the day it was a little bit more important that you, like, tried to keep it to where, like, if you're only playing a certain amount of field spells, you're playing that many field spell searches. But I think even back in the day, people would still sometimes do that, like, play more field spell searches than the actual field spells amount of field spells they have in the deck, if they really need to see the field spell. I feel like that was, like, pretty much a rule even back in the day, where, like, maybe duels would take a little bit longer even, because even, like, in the days where duels would take a little bit longer, it still probably wouldn't take long enough for you to go through your entire deck. And if your field spell is important enough, like, you don't care if the other cards are dead. You probably have enough gas that, like, the field spell just give you enough gas to make up for that. And you can always use those dead cards, like, for maybe discard fodder if you have that or something. Anyway, so Kodaris, this is one of the ones that allow you to gain advantage off of sending an Umi. That's cool. Like, you just send 2 cards your opponent controls to the graveyard without destroying them to not proc destruction effects or get over destruction immunity. Legendary Fisherman is probably honestly one of the best cards, and that also goes for the other one as well. So, like, it's probably a fine idea to play them both at 3. Maybe this one more than the Legendary Fisherman. Although I guess, like, actually, like, since they're both useful for their own reasons, because, like, basically it depends on, like, does your opponent have, like, more spell effects or, like, more monster effects. I think this one's probably the better one because monsters are generally the more dangerous in the metagame, but they're both pretty useful. Like, this one does have more attack though as well, which is pretty cool. Also, funny enough, when the Legendary Fisherman is on the field, it doesn't get the buff off of Legendary Ocean, unlike this guy who does, because this one's unaffected by spell effects. That includes yours as well. And also, wait, no, yeah, but, like, that's only counts while on the field, so you can still, I mean, if he had, you wouldn't be able to pick him up off of salvage anyway because he has too much attack, but assuming he did meet that threshold, you still would be able to, like, pick him up off of salvage, because this wouldn't apply in the graveyard, that unaffected by spell effects. And then Legendary Fisherman 2 is probably the better, also for the fact that it does still gain the boost off of Legendary Ocean, which could make a difference. Maybe. And then Levia Dragon Daedalus destroys all of the cards on the field. This is kind of like a better version of Caldaris. Although, this is kind of funny because like this sometimes whiffs on cards that Caldaris would be able to take out. Because it does specifically destroy them. Although it's cool how you only have to tribute one monster while you have Legendary Ocean out. Since it reduces all monsters in the hand and on the field by one, which like might be something you want to take note of if you're like, if like levels matter to you, like maybe you're playing synchros or exceeds. So maybe if you're playing like a lot of like level 4s, you might want to have like level 3 exceeds instead, because if you or maybe at least a few, like just to cover yourself if Legendary Ocean is out. Anyway, this is also a pretty good one. This is also unaffected by spell or trap effects. This is like honestly probably the better one anyway. So I guess like this is another reason why it might be good to have multiples anyway, even if like you don't like this one as much as this one. Because then like it gives you like better chances of being able to special summon out this guy. You might want to save it when your opponent has like a big board though, since like so you can get the max value out of this. Although it might still be worth it like to play it like on an empty field, just because its on field effects are kind of nice, where like it's unaffected by spell traps, it can't be destroyed by battle card effects, which can be useful like if it's if they're trying to maybe take it out with a monster effect instead, since it's not unaffected by monsters if they're trying to destroy it via monster. And then also it allows you to and then if your opponent's playing a Banish deck, like you could like it's like it can be a good counter to that since it returns those cards to the graveyard. Although it is nice that like that like if also the fact that it can deal double battle damage is really nice when you can attack directly with this card. So if your opponent doesn't banish a lot, and if you're not able to banish a lot of the cards, you might want to just wait until like you like that like double battle damage is actually gonna matter, like maybe when you're going in for a direct attack before you use the effect. Although if your opponent banishes a lot, like might as well just activate it, just because it messes with your opponent's banish zone, if that matters to them. And then Citadel Will is also used so it can be an easy tribute for the Fortress Whale. In exchange, it also lets you special summon itself by tributing 2 Wanas, and it's also a way to be able to get yourself the Sea Stealth attack directly from your deck, which might be reason enough to like need to only play like a few copies of the Sea Stealth attack. Though I think it might be a good idea to still play 2 like this, like they're showing here, just in case the first one is destroyed, because this is a pretty good card. And this is also a really annoying card too if left up. It's also got a kind of a nice negation effect too if that ever comes up. And then Neo Daedalus. This is definitely the best version of both of these. Although it is much harder to get out. Although... Destroy all of the cards. Actually, this one might be kind of better than this if you have an Umi on the graveyard, because like since it's specifically destroying cards, I didn't even think about that at first. Yeah, but since it's specifically destroying cards, you could banish the Fury to protect it from from your own effect there. And then, like, since you're not, if you don't like have like a ton of important back row. And then also, if you have Legendary Fishman 2 out, or Legendary Fisherman 3, you can also just feel free to use it then too. And it's really good for Legendary Fisherman 3 that it specifically destroys it, because like this won't be destroyed. Whereas if you like use this, it can still be sent to the graveyard. So in some cases, this might actually be the better card. And I think in a lot of cases, like for the decks here, like usually there's not going to be cards that are like unable to be destroyed by card effects. So, although if you want to get rid of everything as a last resort, like you could just do Neo Daedalus. Like if you think you can afford to come back from like getting rid of the field or getting rid of the hand and field, or if you're just going in for like the final swing, you can use it. Actually, this one has a pretty big drawback, like also getting rid of all of your cards as well. Like, it is pretty scary, honestly. Although it wouldn't get rid of your Legendary Fishman 2 still. So that does help a little bit. Like, you could get in for a little bit more damage, like with this guy as well. So you want to remember that. Like, if you have both this and this, and your opponent's down to maybe like 4,000 life points, like it can still be worth using. Just to ensure that you are able to hit with both of these guys. So like probably good to remember, because maybe like you forget that this won't be affected by this guy, and so you may be thinking, oh, my opponent has more than 2,900, so I can't use it, whereas maybe that's not the case. Anyway, Fortress Whale, it's the ritual guy. Doesn't really have an effect though, so I'm not sure how. It's probably not like that important to play. Just play the Citadel. Yeah, this doesn't even like really like. This doesn't even really have any homages to Fortress Whale. Citadel is just better. Monster Reborn. Again, you can target Legendary Fishman for it, because that only counts while it's on the field. So if it's in the graveyard, it's not unaffected by spell effects. Oh, it can't be targeted for attacks. That's cool. Okay, yeah. Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, so this is actually a little more useful. That alone kind of protects it from Moonstone Bell. So it kind of makes up for the fact that it's not getting a boost off of the Legendary Ocean, and it's not as big as the Legendary Fisherman 2. And then Salvage allows you to get back your lower level guys, like the Kadaris. Like, you don't really have a ton of targets, so, but you do have a few. It can also allow you to get back your Mistar Boy to your X deck. Power of Extravagance for more draw. There's actually 3 of these this time. Fury of Kairu Shin, for the Torrential, and because it protects your waters from being destroyed, which actually works really well with the Torrential. It's a little combo right there, because if you activate the Torrential and all you control are waters, you can just banish this and only your opponent's monsters will be destroyed. Although, if you didn't activate it then, you could save the Fury instead, like get maybe at the cost of like a few of your monsters, if you think like there'll be a better time for Kairushin. Because basically once you activate it the first time, unless you have a way of getting it back from the band stone, you're not going to be able to activate it again. Unless you have, like, another fairy in the graveyard later on. But you can't always count on that. Legendary Ocean, I kind of talked about. I talked about that. Rage of Kairyu-Shin. And again, this counts as Umi, so this is why all these cards work with it. That's a Umi. This one is another one that could essentially destroy a lot of your opponent's monsters. And it can block zones. And if you are somehow able to manage to destroy all of your opponent's monsters, like in the main deck zones, like all 5, if they had 5 monsters, then you could essentially just lock out all the zones, and so your opponent can't really do much at that point. It can basically be a turn skip at that point. Although it can also be nice for kind of messing up zone, like link arrows too. Like if it's pointing to a spot that is now like locked down for the turn. And then Tornado Wall to protect you from battle damage, which is actually kind of nice. It basically can help with your survivability. This can be kind of an annoying card if you don't like have like an easy way to get rid of it, because that's essentially like most decks winning conditions battle damage. And then this one's also a really annoying card, and this one is also nice because it can kind of take the attention off of C-Stealth attack. Like maybe you like play this first as bait, and then you can like, and then after they get rid of the Tornado Wall, you maybe like you have this one set also, and then you can kind of surprise them with C-Stealth attack. Although, actually no, it doesn't really matter. Like Tornado Wall, C-Stealth attack also helps protect your face of spells or traps, which includes itself. Oh, okay. So yeah, it really doesn't matter, like, because then, like, but like what you so what you could do, like, or maybe there are banished effects though too. So maybe you could still do that for that. Although if your opponent does decide to try destroying it instead, you could flip up C-Stealth attack, and then use the first effect right away. And then now, like, your opponent basically just wasted the Harpies. So this might be more worth it to wait until, like, after your opponent activated Harpy's Feather Duster, since you can use that first effect right away. And then you can use both of these effects, and, well, that's cool that, yeah, see, that second effect is also really annoying, because that's a way that, like, even like your low attack waters can, oh wait, no, I mean, well, your level, okay, so it's a way for your level 5 or higher attack, level 5 or higher monsters to just destroy like whatever you want, like even if the monster has high attack. And because it's at the start of the damage step, I think that would still keep your monster safe from being destroyed. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it is, like, since it's at the start, like it wouldn't, like, battle damage wouldn't take place yet, and so your monster would just destroy it without like it being destroyed itself. And then here's the X deck. A lot of like normal monsters, so like, yeah, like they're all pretty much normal monsters. Well, technically they do have effects, so they still count as effect monsters. I think. No, I think these still count as normal monsters. It's just like listing the materials. They count as effects if like they have like something like this card can only be special summon or fusion summon. But yeah, if they only list materials, they count as no monsters still. And then these are just like to like allow you to go into stuff. Or are these literally just like fodder for Pov Extravagance? I think these are just mostly fodder for Pov Extravagance. Yeah. I think these are mostly just Pov Extravagance fodder. Because like Konami wanted to like give you a full X deck so that you can make the most out of, like, in case like the duel goes long enough to allow you to like play more than one Pov Extravagance. And to, yeah, like Mr. Boy is really the only card in here that you're actually gonna be using. It actually has a pretty nifty effect, like giving all of your water monsters an extra 5 attack. I'm not sure if the debuff matters. I don't know how many fire monsters I'm running. But also the once destroyed, pretty much in any way, like the adding a water monster is also really nice. And can be sorted by your or your opponent's effects or battle. You can also crash into something if you really want to get a water monster back from your graveyard. Anyway, I think that'll do it. Yeah, I definitely don't have time for a pack opening or a verse discussion, so I'll just leave the verse in the description below, but I'll still be able to get in the outro, so that's good. Oh, and thank you all who stayed for either the two deck overviews that I went through. Here, I'll see if I have any fires. Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of Earth, so I don't know how useful that debuff is, but it's still pretty cool. Like, mostly used for the attack buff is still really good, and the destruction thing is still really good too. So yeah, I'm gonna go on to the outro now. Thank you all who stayed for the deck overviews, and it's a big thank you to everyone who stayed for the whole video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and consider ringing that notification bell for regular content. You can either ring the notification bell to be notified of all my videos, or personalized by simply clicking the notification bell and selecting all, or personalized. All is being notified about all my videos, whether you watch them or not, and personalized is being notified of the videos that you watch the most. Also, if you would like to leave a comment, that would be greatly appreciated. You can leave a comment about anything, either pertaining to the video, pertaining to the verse I leave in the description, or just something random if you'd like. Just please keep it appropriate. You can even leave an emote if you would like, but just be aware that it may lock you out if you paste too many of the same emote in a day, just in case, like, if you decide one day you just paste emotes on a whole bunch of my videos. Just keep that in mind. Usually you can fix that by either going with a different emote or by posting multiples of that emote instead of just the one. And thank you everyone who do watch my videos, and a big thanks to those who do watch all of my videos, but still thank you to everyone who only watches a couple once in a while, or just watches one of the games. I understand how it is no matter how you do it. It's just appreciated no matter what, no matter how you decide to go about viewing my videos.